I told God on several occasions, stop letting the spirit get high before I get up to the mic. I told him, I prayed about it, I fasted about it. I said, you got to stop letting all of that flow before I get up here because you know I can't contain myself. But it just feels good to be in a state sometimes where you just can't contain yourself. As it was read before your hearing, in that first book of Samuel, in that 17th chapter, I'm not going to read it out, so could we still please stand, as Pastor would say, so that we can give reverence to the word and respect. I believe Deacon read that 17th chapter, that 32nd through the 52nd verse, and did such a wonderful job of not going to even try to read that many verses behind that. So if you would just allow me to just skim through these just for a moment. First Samuel, the 17th chapter, and I'm going to start at that which he didn't read. I just want to read this one part that fourth verse, and says, and there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits a span, and he had a helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of his coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. And he had, and I'm going to just jump over now to that 32nd verse where he went. And it says, and David said unto Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And just jump down to the 38th verse. It says, and Saul armed David with his armor, and he put his helmet of brass upon his head, and also he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. And if you just allow me once again just to drop down to that 42nd verse, it says, and when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, and for he was but a youth and ruddy and of a fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, hog, that thou comest to me with staves? And the Philistine cursed David by his God. And you would just allow me one more time just to jump down to that 50th verse. And it says, and David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine and slew him, but there was no sword in David's hand. And that 52nd verse says, and the men of Israel and of Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistines until thou come unto the valley and the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell down by the way of Sheraim, even unto Gath and unto Ekron. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading, the hearing, and keeping of this his holy word. And in preparing this message, two things happened. First, this was the exact same story that Pastor preached on last week. And the second thing was, because of our Facebook and YouTube team, and they want us to always give them a title. And of course, today, when I come up with a title, they don't ask me for a title. But as Pastor would say, if I was to give this a title, I would call it Standing Your Ground. Standing Your Ground. Because sometimes what God reminded me is sometimes we have to just stand our ground. And then I read back in this, well, Goliath stood his ground for 40 days and 40 nights, saying the same thing. If you want to come out and fight against me, send me your best warrior. And if he wins, then we'll serve you. But if I win, then y'all have to serve us. And God said that sometimes on the battlefield and even before the battlefield, what we have to do is we just have to stand our ground before the fight takes place. Because sometimes standing your ground gives you a certain, I just lost my word. Standing your ground gives you a certain, just left it again. It gives you a certain incentive in fighting the battle. If you just stand your ground, because certain battles are lost before the battle even begins. And in thinking about that, I can remember when I was coming up and I was like David was, I was young and ruddy and of a fair countenance. And I can remember talking to my father about my older cousin, Pookie. And Pookie always bullied us. He would beat us up and stuff like that. But it was me, it was Sean, it was Durl, it was Telly. We was all in the same group. And everybody was always afraid to go up against him. And my daddy said, you don't have to win, son. He's your older cousin. I got news for you. You're not going to win. He said, but what you need to do is stand your ground. When he come around and he ready to wrestle, when he ready to throw you down, you need to stand your ground. Stop trying to fight against him all the time and just sometimes let him see that you stand in your ground. And I remember one day when we got like 16 or 17, he had a car and we wanted him to take us to Ford City. And he said, I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to put the keys on the ground. And if y'all can get the keys, y'all can take y'allself. Y'all can drive the car to Ford City. Of course, nobody wanted to attempt to get the keys. So here I am, young, Rudy, and of a fair countenance. I said, is that all we got to do? He said, yeah. I'll never forget, right outside of 1510, he put them keys right there, and I think he roughed me up the hardest and the roughest he's ever done, because he saw, for one, I wasn't afraid. And for two, when it was time to get the key, I was literally this close. I'll never forget that. I was this close to getting them keys. And only thing that kept going through my head was my daddy saying, son, you just got to stand your ground sometime. And then standing my ground the next time, it was me, Durl, Sean, and Telly. Guess what? We all jumped him. See, before it was only me that was going after him. But because time after time after time again, and they saw how, yes, he roughed me up. Yes, Pookie was the strongest. He picked me up. He threw me from wall to wall, from door to door. But I kept coming back. And because I stood my ground, it gave them incentive. The next time we was up there, upstairs in that kitchen, see, this is the times you don't forget. We jumped them and we got them good. Because for one, I always almost got him. So once I was able to get him, and I think Durl jumped on his back, and then I think Telly grabbed his leg, and Sean, we all got him to the ground, which never happened before. Now, yes, he beat the crap out of us afterwards. But the beauty was, because I stood my ground time after time after time again, we was able to get him to a place we never got him before, which was on the ground. Yes, he quickly got up. Yes, he quickly got all of us off of him. But the victory for me was seeing him hit the ground. And God said, sometimes you have to stand your ground when it comes to the enemy. He don't want you to always put up a fight. He don't want you to always come up with a scheme or a plan to win the fight. Sometimes he just wants you to stand there and stand on what you believe. That's it, that's all. There is no punch that needs to be thrown. There is no jabs. There is no wrestling. You just have to stand on what you believe. And the more you stand your ground, the less the enemy will attack. I'm going to say it again. The more you stand your ground, the less the enemy will attack. I can remember my brother telling me, it don't matter if you can win the fight. He said, show everybody at the school that you're willing to fight. That's what my brother told me. He said, you know, you might not win because somebody out there bigger, somebody stronger, and somebody is faster. But if you let them know you're willing to fight, I bet you everybody won't be willing to in the fight. You won't keep coming back again and again because he knows that you're really standing on what you believe in. And the first thing he took me to, I'm gonna try my best not to be before you long. I said, I'm gonna try my best. I'm gonna try my best. Now, if the spirit move, don't blame me. In the 38th verse, it says, flip that page. In the 38th verse, it says, and Saul armed David with his armor, and he put a helmet of brass upon his head, and he armed him with a coat of mail. God said, the first thing I want you to see is David let the king put on all his armor. The Bible never said that he didn't put it on. Now we know David said, hey, I have not proved these things. And he took it off. He said, but he let the king put all of this stuff on him. But the first thing you have to do when standing your ground is you have to remember who you are. Not what they say you should be, not what you think you need to be to win the battle. You have to remember who you are. And David, as the Bible will say on several occasions, he came into himself and he said, wait a minute. This ain't what I'm good with. This is not what I'm good with. So he had to tell the king, and if you know anything about those days, you didn't tell the king no for nothing. You did not turn down anything the king gave or any decree that he gave or anything that he was giving you personally. It didn't matter what it was. God says sometimes when you got to remember who you are, it might be you might have to do something that's not feasible or something that's not easy to do, which I'm sure it wasn't easy to tell a king to take your armor off you. So he said, and remembering who you are, it may be some uneasy things you may have to do, i.e. it may be some things that you might have to take off that you really don't want to take off because it's not who you are. This is not what I ordained you to be. This is not who I ordained for you to be. So just because such and such said such and such don't mean keep it on. I don't care who it is, bishop so-and-so, apostle who and who, prophet is such and such. If this is not what I put in you, you may have to take some stuff off. He said that before the battle, the biggest battle you will ever fight comes before the actual battle. The biggest battle comes before the battle. And that's with remembering who you are. God said, and this is God's words, I got it in bold. I told y'all when I gave it from God, I put it in bold. God said, you can't defeat the giant in front of you until you first defeat the giant within you, or the giant that is you. I'm going to say it again. You cannot defeat the giant in front of you if you don't first defeat the giant that's within you or that is you. Because what's inside of you only comes out when the battle takes place. So what's inside of you needs to be dealt with before you get in the battle. So the battle takes place before the battle, not during the battle. You can't try to get rid of some things during the battle because you don't have that time. At that time, the enemy is already on you. You can't go into the battle trying to strap on your breastplate. That has to be on before you enter the battle. You can't be fighting trying to get your helmet, trying to put it on. It don't work that way. The battle is fought before the actual battle begins. And that is the battle of you. David came into himself and he said, I can't, look, I'm sorry, King. I need you to take this coat. I need you to take this sword. I need you to take this helmet. I need you to take all of this because this is not who I am. So once David did that, God said, all that is simply doing is you remembering what God has done for you already. I didn't have on a sword, a helmet, and a breastplate when I fought that lion, nor did I have it when I fought that bear. God said, you got to remember what he's done for you already. He said, it's good to take the testimonies of the saints. It's good to take the testimonies of those in the Bible. But when you're going in the battle, you're going to need to remember what he did for you. Not what he did for mama, not what he did for daddy, not what he did for those that's in the faith. You're going to need to take what he did for you. And that brought me, because now it makes sense how my father, my apostle, could always say the same stories over and over and over again. Because when you can remember what God has done for you, when you can remember from which he brought you from, there's no way you can ever keep it inside. Because this reminds you of what he has done for you. And when you're going on the battlefield, that's what you need to have in mind. What he's done for me. Yes, what he did for her is good. But I got news for you. I got news for you. It's easy for me to say he's a healer when she's sick. It's hard to say how much a healer he is when I'm sick. I can remember for at least 20 years, I came to prayer service and prayed the bereavement prayer. And for those with sudden bereavement. But when I had to experience sudden bereavement, none of those prayers came to my mind. I didn't have the strength to get up and say, thank you for the time you gave me with my daddy. I didn't have the strength to get up and say, thank you for the moments and the precious moments that I had because I was experiencing it. So what he did for her may not help me in this battle over here. But what he did for me gonna help me stand my ground. Because this is what he did for me. See, I can remember I could go back when my daddy died and I couldn't sleep with my lights on. See, this is a story y'all gonna hear me tell for the rest of my life. Because this is something he did for me. See, I can hear the song saying how he took your feet out the miry clay. But when I felt like I was stuck somewhere and couldn't get out, I experienced him pulling my feet out the miry clay. And now that I know personally what that means, I'm going to tell that story for the rest of my life because I can remember night after night after night after night saying if I just go get a couple glasses of Mogan, maybe I could get a little bit of rest tonight. I kept saying, because one night I was in there and I was going through it and I was drinking the Mogan with my wife and I had a little bit too much that night. And when I had just a little bit too much, I felt something. I'm like, I felt kind of woozy, but that woozy feeling kind of took away the thought of my daddy. So night after night after night, I kept saying, let me go get some Mogan. And I'm going to drink 2 or 3 glasses of this Mogan until I feel that feeling again and I could get some rest. Not knowing that's how a lot of alcoholics become alcoholics. I wasn't trying to drink because I like liquor. I wasn't trying to drink just to get drunk, but I was trying to drink to get my mind off of what my mind was experiencing. But once the liquor get a hold of you, sometimes it's hard to get it off of you. And that's how alcoholics become alcoholics. But I could just keep hearing my daddy in my ear saying, you got to deal with this, son. You got to deal with this, son. So every time I went to the liquor store and I wanted to the Mogan, I can hear him say, you got to deal with this, son. And then I walk out the liquor store. See, this is my testimony. See, I know what he did for me. I know what he kept me from because I'm telling you, I left work every day. My wife didn't even know and went to the liquor store. And I was saying, you know what? Yeah, you try to make an excuse like, if I called Julius and Kenny over, You know what? Maybe I could grab a bottle of XO. Maybe I could grab a bottle of XO, and that'll be a reason to be drinking the XO. See, I know what he did for me because I couldn't stand the state that I was in, the way my mind was. So when I hear people say he's a mind regulator, I know for myself because I thought I was going to lose mine. I got up here, yeah, I preached. I did Bible class, and let me tell you something. I can't remember none of it. If I don't go back and look at it on Facebook, I don't remember any of it. I can't remember at least that first 6 to 8 months. I don't even remember. This girl asked me something like, you know what that praise dance you and Tiffany Nichols do it again? I said, what praise dance? She said, oh, was that after Daddy died? She said, yeah. I said, oh, I don't even remember. I don't even remember doing the whole praise dance. I don't remember it at all. So when I say he's a man regulator, because I thought every night and every day I was going to lose, man. When I hear him say he brought me out of darkness when I was afraid to turn the lights off, you can't tell me. So to stand your ground, you got to remember what he did for you. See, now I know what he has done for me, because after that, I'm going to tell you, after that, 1 year, 6 months, and 14 days later, I found myself in the same miry clay. 1 year, 6 months, and 14 days later, I found myself once again stuck in the miry clay. But because I know what he did on September 10th, because I know he took me out on September 10th, when March 24th hit, I just kept looking back to September 10th and say, if he did it before, surely he could do it again. So to stand your ground, you're going to need to remember what he did for you. Yes, I know. I love how he healed my mother. Yes, I do. How she had the tumor, she went, she had the best doctor, and she had the surgery, she was out of there on the same day. All of that's fine. But when I needed him to get rid of my anxiety, my mama brain tumor didn't come to my mind. When I was up all night, couldn't breathe, couldn't really see, couldn't do all that, my mama tumor didn't come to my mind. What I was going through came to my mind. And when he delivered me from it, I hold on to him delivering me from my anxiety. I remember what he did for her, but I hold on to what he did for me. And to stand your ground against the enemy, you're going to need to remember what he did for you. God said when you defeat that giant that's within you, then the outer giant could step forward for you. I'm going to say it again. When you defeat the giant from within, the giant from without could step out and step forward. The giant that's from without is only waiting for you to destroy the giant that's within. Once you do that, the giant from without can step forward, and guess what? Guess what? You realize you're the only giant on the battlefield. When the giant from without step forward, that giant don't see Goliath as a giant. Didn't I tell you that? David never saw Goliath as a giant. They did. So when you let that giant step forward, that giant, you realize it ain't no giant on the battlefield but me. I'm the biggest, I'm the baddest, I'm the toughest thing out here. Because I destroyed the giant that was inside, because that only keeps you from seeing things on a small scale. But when the giant step out, he see everything as small. Every situation ain't nothing to him. Every circumstance is nothing to him, because you have let the giant step in front of you and not let it destroy you. That giant, that outer giant, comes to do one of two things. It comes to conquer, and to keep pushing forward. That's all. When that giant come out, that's all he come to do. Conquer and move forward. That giant, the outer giant of you, never backs down to nothing and nobody. Because when that giant step out, that giant know that greater is he that is within me than he that is within the world. But I got news for you. That he that's within you have to step out of you to prove that he is greater than he that is within the world. That giant is in you, but you got to let that giant step out. You got to kill that giant of fear. You got to kill that giant of anxiety. You got to kill that giant of worry. You got to kill that giant, because that giant only helped you see the battlefield with a whole lot of other giants ahead of you. But God said, when you destroy that giant steps forward. And once that giant stepped forward, the Bible said that Goliath was their champion. That's the reason the Israelites feared, not just because he was a giant. I got news for you. Read your Bible. Goliath was from a town of giants. They already knew of giants. It wasn't that he was a giant that they feared. It was because, and the champion of Gath. That means he ain't never lost. So because of what he represented, put your spiritual ears on. Because of what he represented, they feared. But when you let the giants step out of you, it don't matter what you represent. It don't matter how much power you got. Yeah, you got the power to say approve or deny. You got that power now. Amen. Come on. You got that power now. But when that giant step out, it will cause you fear to not ever say deny to me again. Because of what I represent. The representation that you have will go down, and my representation will go up. I'm going to prove it to you in the story. I'm going to prove it to you in the story. God says that you have to let that giant out. And that 42nd verse, it says, and Goliath disdained him. In other words, Goliath immediately wrote him off. Because of what he looked like, he immediately wrote him off. And God said, when you stand your ground, unfortunately, some people going to write you off. They're going to write you off because of what it looked like. They're going to write you off because of what it looked like and because of what you look like. Let me come down y'all street. Let me stand down the street. Some people going to write you off because of what you look like now. Because you got a house. Because you got a business. Because you got trucks to go to your business. You got people to go to your business. So what I'm going through over here, they going to write you off because of what you got. But then that's when you got to let them know you wasn't here before I got this business. You can't look at the finished product. Come on here. Boy, get out the Sunday school lesson. You can't look at the finished product and don't look at what it took for me to get to this point. You can't write off all the stuff that I had to go through to get to this point. And unfortunately, people will write you off because of what you look like now or because of what the situation looked like. People gonna write you off and say, oh, no, ain't no way she getting through that. Let me go on over here. Let me press my luck over here because ain't no way Ray gonna be able to do that right now. Ain't no way, because of what it looked like. Because of what you look like. But when you remember what he done for you, it don't matter what she say about you now. I'm not gonna let how you feel about me now do anything. I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna slow down. I'm not gonna pause because I know what it took for me to get here. You can talk about me all you want. You wasn't there. Yes, You wasn't there.
Go ahead.
When I had to take a wife and 6 kids somewhere. You wasn't there when I had to split my family up. You wasn't there when I had to live in my mama's house. When I left and said I'm never coming back. You wasn't there when I had to take a bag of clothes to my mama's house. You wasn't there when I had to go visit my kids at their grandma's house. So how dare you write out how I look now and you don't know what it took for me to get here. But people will write you off because of what God done for you now. And all you got to do is let them know what he done for me. Surely he'll do the same thing for you. Because he healed my body, don't write me off because now your body, brain. This is the point where you need to get close to me and figure out the God that I serve that healed me and how he could heal you. But unfortunately, people will write you off because of what it looked like. And that's one way the enemy will try to get you to break down your defenses. He gets you to stop standing your ground because of what people saying, because what they saying is sometimes make you feel a certain kind of way. I vowed. Ain't another person gonna ever make me feel bad about what my God did for me. I'm not gonna shut my mouth no more because of what he did for me. Because you got a problem with it and that you think I'm bragging. So I shut my mouth so it won't seem like I'm being something that I'm not. I vowed. I told my God, never again would I shut my mouth up from what you did for me. Because they want to, see, this is why I don't like Facebook. Because they want to put stuff up there about what I'm saying and about what I'm doing. But I'm just talking every time I say something, I say God did it. Every time. Never once have anybody ever known me to brag or be thinking like I'm all of that. Never once. Never been that type of person. Never. Ever. But now when I get my car and I get my house, all I want to talk about is my car and my house. And I want to say, ooh.
Don't let him change your mouth. Don't let him change your mouth.
I want to say some things sometimes.
Don't even
I'm telling you. Sometimes I want to say some things because you don't know the half of it, baby. You don't know the half of it. If you knew a quarter of it, you would shut your mouth. But now I'm bragging.
Come on.
And then you could.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
It's gonna be some people that the enemy will use to try to break your defenses down.
Yeah.
By trying to write off what you have done, what God has done for you. And then God brought back up those 5 smooth stones. And Pastor gave excellent points with these 5 small stones on several occasions. I remember one time he preached. I don't know about y'all. Sometimes I remember and I retain things. I remember one time he said those 5 smooth stones. It was because Goliath had 4 brothers that was probably on the battlefield also. That was one reason. And then last week he said it was because them 5 stones represented the 5 conversations. And I took me to that and I said that was great. And he said just add a little more to it. The number 5. That number 5 means it's a symbol of balance. It means that you have to keep a balance between material and spiritual aspects in your life. It says that the number 5 is a symbol of individualism, courage, and important lessons that you have learned through your own experiences. I say that you have learned through your own experiences. And those 5 smooth, the reason he took 5 smooth stones, because it had to, sometimes you got to separate the material from the spiritual, or the physical from the spiritual. Because I'm going to tell you, physically, this physical flesh of mine sometimes want to say a lot of things that I just shouldn't say out my mouth. It makes me want to do a lot of things I shouldn't even be thinking in my mind. So he take them 5 smooth stones, remind him what to say and what to do. It creates a balance between the two. And Pastor said that he was talking about them conversations, and that was exactly right, because sometimes you have to have a balance between conversations, between what they said and between what he said. There has to be a balance, because of what they saying ain't up what he's saying. You should never let these ever. So there has to be a balance. God said, because those other conversations, like Pastor mentioned, those other conversations is meant to do one thing: to make you forget that conversation. That's it, that's all. Those conversations is to make you forget what he said. And I can remember during the beginning of my house project, search, whatever you want to call it, because it was a thing. I can remember, and I said it to the church. Probably don't remember because it was a year ago. I said, Pastor came to me and he said to tell the church, and I know it was for me, that have I ever let you down? I said that, I posted it on Facebook, on the Lebanon page. Have I ever let you down? He told me that in the beginning of my house search, the beginning. And then everything great. And all of a sudden, the bottom just left out of everything. And I had to hold on to, have I ever let you down? Because another conversation was saying something else. And as I got further along in this house, I'm thinking, look up a little bit again. And then, boom, it happened again. And I can remember driving. I told y'all this. I can remember driving. And he came to my ear. He said, you in here crying about what they said? What they said, son? You crying about what they said? And I held on to that. Because now what they saying was beginning to affect me. There was no balance between physical and spiritual. But he came around and spoke in his ear and said, you praying about what they said? He said, and I held on to those words. And when the bottom began to, put itself back together again, I just held on to them, because what they were saying was something completely different. What they were saying was, all of a sudden, it went from yeah to no. And then all of a sudden, it went from this rate to this rate. Whoa, I was telling you, you're going to need this much, so you're going to need this much. Whoa, I definitely ain't got this much. So everything changed, because those 5 smooth stones in those conversations is meant for a balance. God ain't gonna stop. God ain't gonna stop the conversation, but God wanted you to bring a balance to conversations. He's not gonna remove it. He ain't gonna stop them, but he wants you to bring a balance, and that's what your 5 smooth stones is meant to do. Bring a balance, because what God said is, don't listen to their words and forget his words. When you do that, they have broken down your defense. You're no longer standing your ground. And then God pointed out the most peculiar thing to me doing this. In that 43rd verse, 43rd verse, It says, and he took half in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook and put them in a shepherd's bag, which he had, even in the scrip, and the sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And in the 43rd verse, it says, and the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog that you come to me with staves and this is what the most peculiar thing God pointed out to me. He left Saul. He took off the armor. He took out. We always know that David fought with the slingshot, and he picked himself 5 smooth stones. We know this. He left Saul when he took off the armor, and he left with his staff. Why? He ain't protecting no sheep. You know what a staff is meant for? It's to protect the sheep. It's to guide the sheep. You know, the sheep get to going somewhere. The staff got that long hook on it. You pull the sheep back in. Sometimes a little baby lamb may fall in a ditch. You use that to pick them up. Why did he leave Saul's castle? Or not the castle, the ground where they was at, because they was out there waiting for. Why did he leave that with his staff? Why his staff? He used the slingshot to defeat Goliath. We all know that. But why did he leave with his staff? And he ain't going to protect no sheep. Even more, why did he take his staff down there? You read your Bible? He left the sheep to go take his brothers the food. Why did he have the staff in his hand in the first place? And then you get there, you hear all the commotion. Okay, he can't beat me. I know what I did before. Now he's ready to fight. And here he go with this staff. And then I can remember later in David's life, he said, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. I said, why did he take this staff? Because God said, when you build your defense and you stand in your ground, remember what got you there. What got him out of the bear and the lion was being a shepherd. Not that he was big, not that he was bad, not that he thought he was strong, but because he was being a shepherd. And when you get to the battleground, you got to remember what got you there, not what they say you need on the battleground. You have to continue and to keep the things that got you there. He said, it's in bold, I'm going to read it. He says that you have to take the weapon that you have perfected for the battle, not the weapon that the battle is called for. I'm going to say it again. You got to take the weapon that you have perfected battle calls for, because they battle calls for swords, shields, spears, armor. That's what the battle calls for. But when you go to battle, you got to take what God been perfecting in your life. I got news for you, what God showed me with this. David said the same God that delivered me from the bear, the same God that delivered me from the lion will deliver me from this giant. Guess what? He went to Goliath with a slingshot. Guess what? He didn't use a slingshot to beat the bear or the lion. He didn't use a sling. Read your Bible. It said, and when the bear attacked, he grabbed him by his hair and he slew him. He grabbed him by his beard. And the same with the lion. So why did David have a slingshot in the first place? Because what God been using and getting you to perfect, the weapon that God been having you perfect, it wasn't for the lion and the bear. He was perfecting the slingshot for Goliath. So the weapon God having you perfect, it might not be for today, but it might be for tomorrow's today. Although he didn't use the slingshot, he didn't forget that God was perfecting him with the slingshot. And often we forget that part because you grab the lion and you cut his neck, probably with a little knife or something. Now you think that that's that weapon that you need. That ain't the weapon. God had you perfected. That was just the weapon that was available at the time. And you need to know the difference between availability and perfection. If God got you working on something over here, don't get and see that that's not needed to think that you don't need to take it with you. Everything God gives you, you need to take it with you, because it don't mean that you're going to use that weapon in this battle. But he got you perfecting it for a reason. You want to know why he went after the lion and the bear? Because he was being a shepherd. That was his job. Pay attention, put the spiritual ears on. You want to know why he went after the lion and the bear? Because he was being a shepherd. That was his job. That was his job. And when he got to the battlefield with Goliath, yes, he remembered what God did with the lion and the bear, but he didn't say, maybe if I get to Goliath and I can use the same knife to cut his neck. No, because if Goliath got that close to you, I got news for you. The lion and the bear was sent to try to do one thing. Read your Bible. Read your Bible. The Bible David never said, the lion and the bear that God delivered me out of their mouth. You want to know what he said? The paw of the lion and the paw of the bear. Some things are meant to hold keep you in. The lion and the bear wasn't meant to eat David. The lion and the bear, sometimes some things and some people in your life is there to be leeches. And it's your job to deliver yourself from the paw of the bear or the lion. That could be a bad relationship. That could be a person. That could be drugs. That could be alcohol. That could be certain things are trying to just get a hold of you. If you read Daniel's story in the lion's den, he said, God that delivered me out of the mouth of the lion. God shut the mouth of the lion. Never once did he say paw. Never once did David say mouth. He only said paw, because certain things are coming just to try to leech on to you. And it's your job to fight it off with everything that you got. Yes, it's a bear. Yes, it's a lion. Yes, it's bigger, it's greater, it's stronger, it's faster. But it's your job to detach yourself from it. God said that what that showed David, and what we tend to do on this battlefield is we tend to forget the path that got us there. And we just remember the end result of getting there. We forget the path that took us there, and we remember the end result of being there. God said that don't work on the battlefield. I told my Sunday school last Sunday, the Bible says, Romans 8:28, that all things work together. All things work together for the good of them that love God and called to his purpose. But the point I want you to see is that everything works together for the good. It never said it worked out for your good. It works together for your good. It don't work out for your good. And when we don't see it work out, that's when we lose faith. That's when we drop off. That's when we start being places we don't want to go. He never said it's going to work out. But since it don't work out, we miss it working together. God never meant for it to work out over here. He wanted it to work together over here so it can work out over there. But when it didn't work out over here, you didn't see it work together to get you to over here. And that is how you lose. That's how you break your defenses. You're no longer standing your ground because you're not seeing it work out. God didn't say it was going to work out for you. Just see how it's going to work together to later work out. Because in my house church, and I don't care if people keep talking about it because I'm talking about my house. So what? In my house church, it didn't work out over here. It didn't. It started out, it was good, and then it didn't work out. But because God was working it together over here, I lost this loan officer. I lost The underwriter guy who got everything to go through because something that was on the credit that didn't need to be on there, he got it to go through with this loan officer guy who did. Then when the bottom dropped out, the underwriter guy left and went somewhere else. So now this loan officer had to go back and send it to somebody else who said no. But because before everything dropped out, everything was working together. When I changed loan officers, he looked at what was previously done. He said, oh, I can get you in that house, no problem. Don't worry about it. And guess what he did? Got me in that house, no problem. Didn't worry about it. So when it don't work out, don't be, as the Bible will say, don't be dismayed. Don't be discouraged. Just see how it's working together. It ain't meant to work out over here. Because if it worked out over here, you wouldn't have the benefit of being over there. And we don't never want to see that point because we want what we want, when we want, how we want it, and the way we want it. And when God don't show up that way, well, we lost. But God said that it was never meant to work out. It was just meant to work together. So you got to take that stuff to battle with you. You be perfected. Have to take that stuff to battle with you. And last thing, God said that this battlefield is, and then he said that the blessings of the Lord make it rich and add no sorrow to it. And when God gave me that, I started thinking, yes, I'm talking about my daddy. I started thinking how if the blessings of the Lord make it rich and it add no sorrow, I said, my father was one of the biggest blessings I ever got, I ever received. I said, but you know what, God? I was sorrowful. I had sorrow. So how is it if your blessings make it rich and add no sorrow, I got sorrow? I'm questioning this word. I told y'all play with God, I don't. I'll be real with him, straight up. I said, God, I was sorrowful. Then he took me to the definitions. I'm going to give it to y'all. And I said, even Jesus, our Lord and Savior, who is the biggest blessing that any of us ever made it here. Jesus on his way to the cross said, I am exceedingly sorrowful, even unto death. Sorrowful. And I said, he gave me all these definitions. I'm going to give it to y'all. He said, y'all know what sorrow means. Anguish. I said, I had that misery. I had that grief. I had that sadness. I had that toil, pain, agony, gloom, bleak, wistfulness. And these are all the Hebrew definitions. Woes, mourning. I said, God, I had all of that. So how is it your blessings make it rich and add no sorrow? I was sorrowful, and then even Jesus said, I am exceedingly sorrowful. So how is it these blessings, it's got some sorrow attached to it? And I said, I know I was sorrowful because I remember, like I told you, I couldn't sleep with the lights off. And then 1 year, 6 months, 14 days later, I was back in the same sorrowful state. And then I can remember I had Juju and little Kenneth over to my house. And we was finna watch Godzilla vs. King Kong. And I was at the store and I was gonna buy some popcorn. We gonna buy some popcorn. You know, I got my boys, I got them. We gonna watch the movie. And because of the situation, because of the March 24th situation, everybody was in a fragile state. And I was grabbing the popcorn, and you know what I did? I put it back. And I said, now these got kernels. I can't afford nobody choking. You know what I'm saying? I can't afford, you know what I'm saying? You start tripping because of the anguish and the mourning and the grief that I just went through. The moment I start thinking about, you know, what if one of them choke and I can't get it out? You know, what if it's Juju? What if it's Kenny? Our family can't take nothing right. So this is the state that I'm in. So you know what I bought? I bought Swiss rolls. This is a true story. It's a true story. They soft. It ain't hard. You know, it ain't no chunks in it. It's soft. It got whipped cream in it. You can't choke off of it. And that's what I bought. Because I'm telling you, my state. And I said, And I'm only like that because I was sorrowful when my daddy went. And I was sorrowful when my brother went. So how you telling me that these blessings don't bring no sorrow with it, and I had sorrow? And even Jesus said it. And he said, well, first of all, you did all that to yourself. He said, you decided not to buy the popcorn. You was afraid that something might happen. You, after March 24th, I started praying more for my nieces and nephews than I ever have before, because the thought came to my mind, if something happened to Ari, Monique would lose it. If anything happened to any of Tanner kids, she'll lose it. So I started praying more for my nieces and nephews, because normally, not selfishly, but just unknowingly, I pray a lot for my brothers and my sisters. And I say, Lord, keep their kids. But that's just what I say, because of course I want God to keep it. But once Eric went and I had to see his kids in that state, I had to start praying for my nieces and nephews, because if something happened now, my brothers and sisters is in a state that who knows? So God said, first of all, you did all that to yourself, because I said, I'll keep your mind in perfect peace if you keep it stayed on me. That's number one. That's number one. That's number one. That's number one. I said, this is it. He said, this is what I said, because you didn't hold on to what I said. Don't say that my blessings brought you sorrow. You did this on your own. That's number one. He said, number two, you didn't feel that way till your daddy left. That's number two. I said, oh, okay, so the blessings don't add sorrow and you take it? He said, that's not what I'm saying, but I want you to see you didn't feel any of that until your father left. And he said, and I got news for you. Your father and your brother wouldn't come back for you if you wanted them to. Yeah. So these are things you did to yourself. Then he took me back to that definition, and it was one word that I kept overlooking. What's the one word? You want to know what else sorrow means? Regret or sorry. Yeah. He said, now, do you regret ever having your father in your life? I said, I don't. He said, are you sorry that you had him as a father? I said, I don't. He said, my blessings didn't bring you sorrow. You didn't regret, or nor was you sorry. My blessings didn't bring you sorrow, son. I said, you right. You got it. You got a point. Because I'm thinking all of those other definitions. He said, but how you keep missing that word right there? How you keep missing that one word? Regret. And it said it 3 different times in there, and I missed all 3 times. Regret. Sorry. He said, so my blessings don't. If my when it says that the blessing of the Lord make it rich and add no sorrow to it, that means what I gave you, you'll never be sorry that I gave it to you. You'll never be sorry that I gave it to you. You will never regret having it. I said, you're right. But Jesus said he was sorrowful, not sad, not anguish. He said, I am exceedingly sorrowful. He was sorrowful, God. So he was sorry and he had regret. He said, let me tell you why he was sorrowful and why he had regret. He said, because Jesus knew when he died on that cross that he couldn't save everybody. And that made him sorry, because he said, I come that they might have life. Not that everybody gonna get it. And Jesus knew even unto death, everybody wasn't gonna be saved. And he regretted that. Not dying, not coming, not the pain, not what he had to do. He regretted that he couldn't save us all. That battlefield will never make you sorrowful, because at the end, you will appreciate the fact that you had to fight. We don't never want to see it as a blessing because we have to fight. But at the end of it, you're going to appreciate that you had to fight. And God said the battlefield is one of the biggest blessings that he could give you. Because if it wasn't for the battlefield, you wouldn't make it through this, through that, through this, through that, through that, and through this. But because you had to fight for this over here, it'll teach you how to get through this over here. Because I had to fight over here, I don't have a problem with going through it over here. Because, in other words, because I know what he did for me over here, I know what he could do for me. I know what he can do over here if he don't make you fight over here. God said we need to stand our ground. We'd like to thank all of our Facebook viewers. We thank you for tuning in. We thank you for listening. All of those on Facebook as well as you located at 1501 West Marquette Road. That's right on the corner of 67th and Laughing. When you get tired of watching on Facebook, when you get tired of watching on YouTube, come join us. We are here on Sundays from 10 o'clock to 10. No, we're not. We're here from 10:30 to 11:15 for Sunday school, from 11:15 to 11:30 for quiet time, 11:30 to the Spirit says we're done on Sunday morning. On Wednesday, we are here from 7 o'clock to 7:30 for prayer service, 7:30 to 8:30 for a Bible class. May God bless you and may heaven continue to smile down upon you. Could we all stand? The doors of the church are open.